Welcome to another episode of Life and Whiskey. As always, I am Jordan. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. I have done this in the past. I don't have any new whiskeys to review. However, I have notes on some whiskeys that I have tried recently. These are ones that a lot of the major channels have reviewed and whatever else. I, however, am not fortunate enough to either have enough money or have the ability to get these, like most of you, since these are kind of unobtainium for a lot of people. So we're going to be dealing with a couple of Buffalo Trace products. These are allocated ones. I got two of the BTAC, which are the Buffalo Trace Antique Collection ones. The George T. Stagg 2023 and the Thomas H. Handy 2023. That's one of the ryes. We will talk about those towards the end of the video here. So I guess let's see here. What all do we? I got notes here, so if I'm reading from my notes, sorry. First things first. When I did my tasting, so we have this place here in town called the Tasting Library, and they often have bottles of stuff that I can't get my hands on, and I'm kind of fortunate enough. Now it is outrageously expensive. So, like a quarter of an ounce, if you're lucky. It says it's a quarter of an ounce. I don't even know if that's true, but they call it a taste. So, like a taste of that George T. Stagg was like $14, $22, $23. I don't remember because there was like it seemed like there was like a happy hour, and then we crossed the happy hour, and then the prices on all four of these went up by $3 each. So, uh, so the first one here is the old Rip Van Winkle 10-year 2023 107 proof. I will say this for all of these, these are a lot of unicorns for people, things that people are chasing constantly. If you could ever get your hands on any of these bottles for MSRP, it's probably worth it. Now I've been fortunate enough to get my hands on like the Elmer T. Lee. I paid I think $27 for that. That's totally worth it. 150 to 300 and something dollars. That's absolutely insane. I mean, the whiskey's not that fantastic. Same with the Colonel E.H. Taylor, just the regular small batch that I have. I've said it 100 times. It's my favorite whiskey. Hoping to get my hands on the full proof or the single barrel rather than just the small batch or the bottled and bond or any of the other ones. I'd love to get my hands on some different ones. But I've seen that small batch for sale for like $150, $160, $140, well over $100. I think I paid, I'm going to get this wrong, $37, $39, something like that for my first one. And then my second one, I paid $62. Still more than doubled in price, but I think it's kind of worth it in that price range. Same thing with like the Weller products, like Weller Special Reserve, the green label, that shouldn't be more than $23, $28, I think is what I paid in the past. Now I know that the MSRP on those have gone up and the prices in general, inflation, all that other stuff. So let's just call it $40. I would never pay, I don't think I'd even pay $40 for the 80 proof. For the Weller Antique 107, last year my wife bought it or 2 years ago. She paid $49 for it. Even that was a little bit expensive, but whatever. I think the first time I bought it, the bottle that I have, I paid like $36 for it. And that was probably back in 2020, maybe 2019, 2018, probably 2019. And I will say that the bottle I have is nowhere near as good as the two bottles that my wife bought for $49 were outstanding. We gave them to my hunting partner, and he and I drank one of them this year while we were grouse hunting over in North Dakota when we picked up my dog. And it's way different than the bottle I have. So that's my second caution when you're dealing with these, allocated whiskeys, these unicorns from Buffalo Trace. Number one, none of them are worth the hype of paying much outside of MSRP. Having bought many whiskeys that are kind of in, well over $100, that Octomore being the most expensive. Now, we've not bought anything outrageous because it's out of our pocket and it's very expensive. Um, the Octomore is excellent. Several other whiskeys that I've had are excellent. But most of the time, the whiskey that is over $100 ends up not being worth it at all for me. Is it good whiskey? Often, but not always. And is it worth $100 for something you're just gonna drink? That's up to you. It's your money. You do whatever you want with it. But for me, it's not. And with that, I'm gonna go upstairs and check on my dog. Sorry, I had to break. My dog was upstairs chewing on his shoes like a knobhead, and now I have her down here with me. So we'll see how this goes. In fact, maybe I'll call her over here. I said I would show you my dog at some point. So, Boone. All right, everybody. Easy. This is Boonahaben. We call her Boone for short. And she's up on the bar, and this is her first time down here, so she has no idea what to expect. But she's almost 8 months right now. She's a little beat up from, we've been hunting Huns. But she's like, what is going on here, boss? But yeah, this is Boonahaben. She's the one causing all the trouble. I'm going to go put her down over on the futon there. Hopefully she'll stay there while we do the rest of this. But she's a little cutie. She looks a lot like my first dog, Lacey. So we'll see how that goes. Anyways, as I was saying, the price on Buffalo Trace, people have gone just outside of their dang minds. It is not worth it to me on any of the products. I mean, the fact that people are paying $40 for just standard Buffalo Trace is absolutely ludicrous. A store pick shouldn't run you more than $20, $25. It's not that it's bad, it's just not that good. Like, there's nothing amazing about it. People are paying $40, $50 for Eagle Rare. That's a $20 bottle. Also, nothing amazing about that bottle. And the other thing I'll say is there's so many other bottles you could have at better prices that kick the crap out of all of the Buffalo Trace product line. So just keep that in mind. Again, your money, your palate, your whatever. If you want to go for that stuff, go for it. Who am I to say? My opinion is none of it's worth it if you're paying more than MSRP on it. And even that, my wife and I were kind of talking about this. Like, it's kind of cool to be able to say you have a bottle of something that's rare and hard to get and whatever. You get those bragging rights. But even at that, I'll go through the MSRPs on these. I'm still not convinced that it's even worth MSRP, just because MSRP on the BTAC stuff is fairly expensive. And I just don't think that is something that I'm going to get out of there. Lay down. That I'm just going to want to deal with, it's good, but there's just better stuff out there, even the BTEC stuff. So with that, if I hadn't said it already, there's two things to note. Number one, all my flavor notes and everything are coming out of a standard rocks glass. They did not have Glencairns. I did not bring my own. That was a fault of mine. I should have done that. They didn't. Even their wine glasses were goblets, and not really tulip shaped. So those wouldn't have even helped. And then number two is from year to year. This is another reason why, in my opinion, it is not worth chasing these, and it's a lot of money to do so. The amount of flavor drift on any of these products is absolutely mind-boggling, astounding. I mean, I've watched reviews and blinds, and I've tasted stuff, and even the Pappies, like the 15, 20, 23. I've tasted those 2 or 3 times now, and there's a lot of flavor drift in those, and yet none of them are in my wheelhouse. Okay, so they're all very, 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 very oaked, way over oaked in my opinion. But like the variance from year to year, and like there's no consistency from one to the next. So if you see a guy that let's say you line up with my palate, and I'm raving about this, there's no guarantee that by the time you actually get your hands on it, unless you're drinking the exact same bottle, if it's the next year, good luck. Or if it's the next batch, like with Stagg, there's 3 releases a year. If you're not getting the same exact bottle, good luck. They are so different, so wild in range that it basically makes a review like this almost worthless. So keep that in mind. Okay, number 1. Old Rip Van Winkle 10-year, the 107 proof, the 2023 edition. The MSRP is $59.99. $60, right? If you can get it for $60, buy one, buy a case, buy as many as they'll let you have, because at $60, totally worth it. The average retail price on it, so this is what stores are actually selling it for, is $560. Not any day in a million years is it worth that. Sorry, it's not. Especially for just a 10-year whiskey when you can get Eagle Rare, also 10-year age-stated whiskey for, like I said, $20 to $40. And then on secondary, people are cranking that up to $750 and beyond. You're out of your mind if you pay that much for it. Like you should not have money if you are paying that much money for it, because you don't understand the value of stuff. So that's my 2 cents on it. With that, I will say, it had a very short finish. The nose was brown sugar, apple, honey crisp, kind of the classic Buffalo Trace, or at least what I perceive to be a classic Buffalo Trace nose. Had a little bit of sweet pipe tobacco in there. It was on the palate. It was light and sweet. It was very E.H. Taylor profile cranked up. Maybe about 50% higher. And the palate followed the nose very, very well, and it had a nice slight oak finish on the end. So those are all hitters for me. I love that stuff. It was great. I would definitely take that over the E.H. Taylor that I have, the small batch. I would say that is definitely a preference of mine over that, but not at the prices and the availability of what that is. I mean, E.H. Taylor, the small batch is hard enough for me to get. Um, and but it is definitely better. I would say that both the 10-year and the next one I talk about, the Van Winkle Lot B 12-year, both of those are what the Pappy lineup should be. I will say, as I just got done saying, that more age on these bourbons is not a good thing for me. If you like chewing on an oak stave and want something that tastes like wood varnish, great. You go get yourself a Pappy 15, 20, or 23. Spend thousands of dollars for it. And I'm I'm convinced that most people that are raving about those feel like they have to convince themselves, or they're just, like it might be good to them. I don't know. But it's nowhere near the best quality product. But if I just spent $3,500 on a bottle, I'd tell everybody it was the greatest thing ever too. It's just not. But the 10 years pretty darn good. There was no burn with it. It was well balanced. It had a little bit of a milk chocolate in there as well. The one negative that I had with it was it had a pretty short finish on it, which, again, if it's a $60 bottle of whiskey with a lot of those notes and flavors in there, then hey, that's pretty all right if it has a short finish. But that's the one shortcoming that it had for me. The next one I had was Van Winkle Lot B 12-year. It's ringing in at 90.4 proof. Also, if you know me, watch the channel, watch my reviews, you'll know that I tend to like that 90 to 110 proof range. And the only way I like it higher and hotter than that is if it drinks as if it's not that high. Like I have some stuff that's down below here that's 142 proof, but it drinks like it's about 100. If you got that going on, that is awesome. I'll drink that all day. There's many whiskeys that I have that are well above the 115 mark that drink lower than that. And then I have bottles that are in the 80, 90 that drink up in the 110 type burning sensation. So That's something that I will say you should know about me. But at 90.4 proof, that 12-year, it brings a little bit more to the table than what the 10-year did. I would not go, like I said, I would not prefer the 15 over the 12. Out of the 15, 20, and 23, the 15 is where I'm at. I think the Van Winkle lineup, Pappy lineup, like it really is singing and hits its best at the 10 and 12 year, at least with these batches and these releases. Now for that, the MSRP is $69.99, so $70. If you found a bottle of that for $70, again, buy 2, 10 a case, whatever they let you have, totally worth it. The average retail price is $680, also ridiculous. And then on the secondary market, it's running anywhere between $850, $1,200, and up. Also absolutely ridiculous. I think any whiskey at that price is absolutely ridiculous. That's when you start getting into the showmanship, the keeping up with the Joneses type thing. Like you're just showing it off. Like those are the people that own the $100,000 bottle of wine that is probably rancid and the cork's gone to shit and it doesn't taste good. Like that's you're paying to just say you have it. Which hey, if that's your thing, good on you. I actually want something that tastes good because I'm actually going to drink my whiskey and enjoy it. So I think that's insane. Now, one of the people that we were out with on Friday was able to buy a bottle, somehow came across it here locally at one of the stores for $550, and he bought that outright. So I think that's insane, but he said he was going to sell it to his brother or give it to his brother, and his brother said he'd give him $1,200 for it. Well, hey, if I could double my money on something, by all means, that's a good buy based on that. I will say this, tasting notes on that, pretty much exactly like the 10-year. It just had more depth to the notes and it started to push more oak notes forward. So on the nose, it was very fruit forward, floral, kind of classic Buffalo Trace. It actually came out more with that profile than the 10-year did, and I'm guessing that's the proof difference. Now, in none of the ones I'm going to talk about does the proof cover up the nose at all. That is one very interesting thing, and that's probably because we were drinking out of a rocks glass that the proof was not forward in the nose. Let's see here. On the taste, it was well balanced. It had a very viscous, oily mouthfeel, kind of a sweet brown sugar, floral, apple, caramel. The sweetness was kind of forward in the flavor profile, and then it finished with a nice light oak. It wasn't tannic or bitter or heavy at all. It was just very nice and light. It was actually very well done, and I preferred that. This also had a short finish, but not as much as the 10-year. It was just a little bit longer. It was a toss for me between the 10 and 12. There was no burn. Again, the proof was lower, though. It was well balanced, smooth, and it also had that milk chocolate. I would say out of the two, I would probably prefer the Lot B over the 10-year. So the 12-year over the 10-year might be the sweet spot for me. I would not thumb my nose at either of them at MSRP. They're both really good. Next up, I had the George T. Stagg 2023 edition. It rings in at 135 proof, so it was pretty hot. And if you know anything about the BTAC lineup, you'll know that that's kind of what it's all about. Is not what it's all about, but it's a thing that they are all pretty hot, especially in the George T. Stagg. I think the 2019 or the 2020 release. I don't know. 2020 or 2021, there wasn't a release because they said nothing was up to standards on that, whatever that means. I don't remember. I don't have all the backstory on this. I don't really remember, but I think it was 2019 was like, or no, the original proof might have been the lowest proof that it came out at was like 115, 16, 17, something like that. But this is 135. That's pretty up there. And I will say that it probably drank around the 110 mark. So the MSRP is and it is reported to be 15 years, 3 months old. MSRP $125. Secondary is like $9.50 and up. And after watching a bunch of reviews on this, the amount of flavor drift, like there is zero consistency. Now, granted, it's a barrel proof whiskey, but there is zero consistency in flavor profile from year to year. They vary drastically. On the nose, one thing to note was that it was very subtle in the glass. The ethanol did not dominate. Again, rocks glass, but the ethanol didn't dominate, but it was very hard to get anything out of the glass. But once I did, it kind of had this musty, dusty basement smell to it. It smelled like old oak, a little bit of apple fruit, but very subtle, very light, had some sweet caramel in there. And then on the taste, it had the same funk that was in the nose came out in the taste, which I wasn't super keen on that. And let's see here, it had some barrel char in there, which was interesting. But it did balance out with a light sweet and has it from the normal Buffalo Trace profile and characteristics, it had a right turn in the middle of the palate. Like it veered away from those classic notes into something different, something I hadn't had before. You could taste the age in it, like that oakiness and whatever. I would say the funk was almost like if the barrels that were mixed into it. Like I got some stuff that I put on oak that the oak was a little bit punky. It almost had that kind of thing going with it. Like they almost had a couple of staves in some of the barrels that maybe weren't so great. I don't know, just guessing on that one, but it was that kind of a sour, funky, dusty, basement-y thing going on. But it has a lot of flavor drift. So again, for that price, not knowing, the proof is always going to be very different. The taste is very different. I'm out. So I've had the Weller, the the William LaRue Weller. I had that last year in South Dakota, or maybe it was in March this year in South Dakota. I don't remember. In Deadwood. Super good. Very hot. Same thing with this. It was not my jam. It wasn't terrible by any means. Very easy drinking. Not my preference. Not at the price point, and there were a couple of things in there that I didn't really care for. So that's my George T. Stagg rendition. I'm out on that. But I am still hunting a Stagg, or what used to be Stagg Jr. I think I'll be more happy with that, especially if I can get it at MSRP. The last one then was another BTAC. That was the Thomas H. Handy 2023. It rang in at 124.9 proof. The ryes that actually that's not true. I was gonna say the ryes are all young, but the Sazerac, I think that's an 18. So that one's not young. But the Handy is 6 years old. 124.9 proof. MSRP is $119, and it's about $7.50 on the secondary market. The nose, it was classic rye. It was sweet honey fruit, and had a lot of ethanol on the back end of the nose that was very burning. Oh, no. Dang dog's eating stinking insulation like a knobhead. Pardon me. Keep my dog from dying. What happens when you let a puppy in on the chute? Get a knobhead. So getting back to that, hopefully maybe I'll edit that out. We'll see. I already got to splice stuff together. So so the nose was very classic rye. It was actually very pleasant. It's what you expect from a lot of different ryes that don't actually end up showing up. So that was quite happily. It was also the first drink we had of the night and ringing in at pretty high proof. We started with the rye and then worked into the bourbons. One thing to note, it was very thin up front. Going back 2-3 times, it was very thin up front. I was very disappointed in that part of the flavor profile. But then it moves to a nice honey sweet with a light brown sugar. Had a very viscous mouthfeel. It felt fairly heavy. but that was only on the front end. And then as it got into the finish, it really dried out really quick. It didn't have a very long and lingering, mixing up my notes here. It did dry out very quick, but that dryness really stuck on the sides of your tongue, and it had a very long finish that was like rye grain, rye spice, classic rye, Pennsylvania style rye finish flavor on the end that just kind of kept going and going and going. That was super pleasant. But it did dry out your tongue with that. It had a lot of burn in the finish. But it had a lot of burn, but it drank lower than the 124 proof. So it drank like 100 proof burns, or maybe like 105, 110 proof burns. But I would, it's hard to make these descriptions up, but it drank hot, but not as hot as it was. So I'm guessing that's because it was 6 years old that it kind of still had some of that burn at that proof point. It was really good. As a guy who really enjoys rye, it was good. I would not spend that amount of money for it, even MSRP at $119. I think, under the $100 mark, you can do really well with the Sagamore ryes. I really enjoy those, especially some of the finished ones and stuff. And that's kind of what I'm going to wrap up on this one is that, when you look at, my videos, go back through my collections and stuff, there's just so many other bottles out there that, if you want to be chasing this stuff, it's fun. It's always a good adventure. It's great to go into a new liquor store in a new location and just see what they have and if they got any good deals on stuff and whatever else. And if you find a good deal, by all means, make sure you get your hands on it and take it with you. Capitalize on the opportunities when they present themselves. As far as the hunt, these are probably not going to make my list. Maybe the Van Winkle, Old Rip, the Lot B or the Old Rip. Either of those, I'll put them on the list, but only at MSRP or something close to it. So that kind of leads me to being here in town at the cheaper liquor store here in town. If they were ever to get their hands on one of those and I was able to get in there before everybody else did and blah, 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 like all the things that go in to be able to get that, I don't see that happening, then I would buy it. But I'm not spending the MSRP on it just because it's just not. There's too many other things. I could buy 3 or 4 bottles of something else that I really enjoy for that price. But I guess, I don't know. My fanboyness of the Buffalo Trace line is dwindling. I will still champion the E.H. Taylor and that whole line, and I'm going to try and do my best to get my hands on bottles for MSRP type prices. I'm not going to be spending hundreds of dollars and crazy prices on stuff because it is that good in my opinion. But that's probably the only one. Same with the Stagg. I'm going to try and get my hands on that for MSRP or thereabouts. But once I get the one bottle, I'm going to be done with that. There's just too many other things out there that are better for cheaper. Kind of the Wyoming whiskey being one that stands out. Bardstown's another one. For instance, we got finally, and I still haven't figured this out because it's not in the state liquor warehouse. So I don't know how they did it, but there's a place here in town that has Remus Repeal Batch 7. And they're asking 110 for it. I want to say that, kind of average around the country is 120. And then I've watched some reviews on it, and, I'm not paying $110 even for that particular bottle. Now, if it was one that people were just off the charts for, sure, I'd go buy it for that. But, stuff like that. There's other bottles that I'd like kind of in and around that price. But, the final thought I have is, go back to 2015. You hear reports of liquor stores having literal cases upon cases upon cases of Elmer Chile, the B-Tax series. Those bottles used to sell for MSRP, $80, $100. they would have cases of that stuff back then just sitting around, and they couldn't get rid of it. Um, Unfortunately now there's probably places that still have some of those bottlings somewhere. But they're asking ridiculous amounts of money for them because they now think they're sitting on a gold mine. And if people keep paying ridiculous prices, people are gonna keep charging ridiculous prices. It is amazing to see how fast and how big the fanboy market and people like myself are part of the reasoning behind that. Although you look at my viewings, you'll see maybe I'm not as big of a part of it as many other people. But like prices are just out of control on stuff. So I challenge you to, not be a sheep and follow the herd, but find your own direction and start. That's what I'm hoping you can find in some of my reviews. I'm not reviewing just the latest, greatest, whatever. I'm picking up, bottom shelf stuff. There's a lot of good things to be had for $20, $30, $40. And I encourage you to check that stuff out as well. Don't just I would caution you against just keeping your eyes on the prize of what everybody else is chasing, especially at the ridiculous sums of money that they're paying right now. I mean, you're just gonna piss it out. You're gonna wake up with a hangover and piss it out. So if that's the way you want to spend $1,000 or $500, then good on you, I guess, but that's not what I'm going to choose to do. So there you go. There's my reviews of my experience with the old RIP 10, the Lot B 12-year, the George T. Stagg, and the Thomas H. Handy, all 2023 releases. They were good, but they weren't mind-blowing. I guess that's the takeaway. Whiskey can be good, but I want to be knocked out of my socks if I'm paying over $100 for it. So there you go. You guys have yourselves a great day. Thanks for watching. As always, I got some editing to do to splice all this stuff together and cut out the knob head in the background and whatever else. So you guys have yourselves a great day. Like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already. Stay tuned. Who knows when the next video is going to be? Maybe this spring here I'll happen across out at the cheap liquor store. Maybe I'll get my hands on a bottle that I've been chasing for a long time. And when I do, I will share it with you guys and give you my review. So, as always, thanks for watching. Have yourselves a great day. We'll catch you in the next video.